I broke my arm because I'm so excited to share with you this video. Anyways, just kidding. I actually just tore a shoulder muscle thing. But anyways, this is what I learned from helping take my coaching client fund launch from 1.2 mil to 36 million in 4 years with paid ads. And we maintained an average 8.49x return on ad spend over the course of this time. So let me show you here. So back in 2020, we're seeing an average of a 7.5 return on ad spend with about $1 million in profit, which is fantastic. And we made about 1.2, right? And this was before I came on. After I came on the last 4 years, we've been able to go to 1.2 and since spent 4.3 mil across all platforms, generating a little over $36.5 million, right? With 32 mil in profit, right? And that's an 8.49x return. So even as we scaled, we're able to keep getting even better return on ad spend, right? So I'm gonna dive in to everything that I've learned being around this client and scaling offers and everything to get from the 7-figure mark to the 8-figure mark, right? So there's a lot of people that will teach how to get to 7 figures and from 6 to 7, but there's a lot of growing pains between 7 and 8. And there's a lot more that I'm gonna discuss in this video here. I might do a part 2, but as far as the ad side of things, the paid ad side of things, this is what helps. Okay, so the first thing you need to address is you need to understand the TAM of your market, or TAM stands for Total Addressable Market, right? For your offer and your competition of your offer and your avatar of your offer, right? And let me explain here. Here's an example. The market for selling burgers, like good old hamburguesa, is way bigger than the market for selling caviar, right? However, the competition for caviar is way less than burger joints, right? Which you can find probably on about almost every street in America. You can find McDonald's, Burger King. I love Burger King. Oh yeah. Anyways, and so let me put this in perspective. The average price of a quarter pound of caviar is between $150 to $700, while the average quarter pounder burger with cheese is $6 to $10, right? So around 100 times more, or can get up to 100 times more of the cost. So you choose which market you'd like to dominate. That's exactly what Fund Launch did, my client Fund Launch. They actually started in the education and coaching space for real estate flipping and investing and things like that. But the competition was super high with giants already established like Pace Morby, Grant Cardone, and quite a few others already dominating the space on about every traffic channel. So instead, they were the pioneers of education for investors and successful entrepreneurs to scale their portfolios by launching an investment fund. Now, at the time, this was a very untapped market, and their competitors were not advertising in a way that was accessible and was not fun at all, things like that. So their offer definitely wasn't for everyone, but because the offer was tailored towards wealthy, financially successful people, they were able to charge a lot more than the average coaching or education program, as long as the perceived value was higher than what it actually cost, right? And the second best thing was the TAM, or the total addressable market, was still quite large for their niche, because while competition was extremely low, right? It's not as big as start a drop shipping company, end your 9 to 5 and start an agency. But there was a certain market of these higher echelon people that were not being really sold to on platforms like YouTube, Meta, LinkedIn, things like that. So, and here's why the competition has not done super well as far as in the coaching space. Most people had to work for decades on Wall Street and get their Ivy League degree before being able to launch a fund. Plus you got lawyer and attorney fees, which cost an arm and a leg, going in blind as well, so you're not knowing how much they're supposed to cost. So the traditional way to launch your own fund for these wealthy people was a very long process and very expensive. But Fund Launch made it accessible for investors by providing them with the education and the network to launch a fund with the necessary capital they have on hand, right? So a quite unique approach. And the returns from launching a successful fund can scale as far as you'd like. It's how the ultra wealthy get wealthier. So remember, as long as the perceived value is higher than the actual price, this made it easy to charge, 30 to 50K for this coaching company, for this client of mine, because legal docs alone and hiring lawyers was this amount. Plus you get all the education side and the network, right? So keep in mind, it all comes down to the offer and understanding its total addressable market its competition, and customer avatar. Okay, I'm gonna go on to the second lesson that I learned is that you really only need 2 to 3 types of funnels to scale one offer in the high ticket space. Okay, so the first one, you need a top of funnel list building lead magnet that generates buzz and gets you cheaper leads, right? Although quality might not be as ideal in the beginning, in the long game, this works really well. This is a 3-page funnel. You have your opt-in page, your thank you page / booking page, as in your calendars on the thank you page, and then you have a booking confirmation page, right? You're gonna wanna run this to cold traffic, should be at least 2x lower lead cost than your VSL funnel, which I'm gonna talk about in a minute. And the offer could be a lot of things. It could be a mini course, a PDF, an ebook, free tool, template, etc. You wanna make sure that the thank you page has an option to book a call with you as the step 2, and expect a 1.5 to 2x lower cost per booking. However, cost per qualified will significantly be lower, right? So this is basically to fuel the fire, and the purpose is to keep the lead pipeline going through, get them on your list. You can start emailing them and nurture them. Every offer is different, but the lead to sales cycle on this funnel will typically be a longer period. Typically, I suggest coming out with this lead magnet after you come out with your middle of funnel VSL, right? And that's what we're gonna talk about next. So the first funnel that I always suggest is your middle of funnel VSL funnel that will qualify serious prospects for your high ticket offer. And this is a good way to leverage your offer, right? So before you create this top of funnel lead magnet, we're gonna start with the middle of funnel and go straight to your offer, right? And educate them, right? So this is a 3 to 4 page funnel, depending how you look at it. If it's 3 pages, you're gonna have your opt-in page, and your VSL page will also have a booking area underneath it. Or if you want, you can have 4 pages and go opt-in, VSL page, then they go to a booking page, and then the last page is a booking confirmation page after they've booked. You wanna run this to cold traffic as well as warmer traffic, like your top of funnel lead magnet leads, right? And this information in the VSL should go one of 2 ways depending on the awareness stage of your solution, right? So there's a direct VSL, which is around 5 to 10 minutes long. This is typically for a market more aware of your solution. Messaging should be very guarantee and results driven, an explanation, very clear on the explanation of your solution. Let me give you an example. Let's say I'm trying to sell my Facebook ads course to Facebook media buyers. They don't have to be sold on, the solution of Facebook ads. They're already in the weeds. So instead of, selling them on the messaging of Facebook ads will change your life type of thing for someone who's unaware, I would just go right to the point of, hey, you're running Facebook ads and you're losing clients. Here is how you can retain your clients better by being better at Facebook ads, right? And so I'd go into that, and here's what I've done. Case studies, 5 to 10 minutes, not as much of a training, but kind of guaranteeing what your program, what your solution does, right? Next, we're gonna go into the indirect VSL. This is gonna be between 10 and 30 minutes long, typically. So this market is typically less aware of your solution. For the case of Fun Launch, we were selling to a lot of people that were problem aware, that wanted to scale their portfolios, that were doing syndication deals, 1-by-1 type deal, and wanted more leverage. And so maybe they've heard of a fund, which is the solution, maybe they haven't. And so we went this approach, and we had around a 20-minute VSL that went through the education side of the transition period of, hey, you have this problem and here's our solution will best help you. And then you get into the guarantee, the results, the case studies, and things like that. But it takes a little more time for an indirect VSL. Keep in mind, lead to sales cycle should be shorter than your top of funnel lead magnet. Okay, so now you need a bottom of funnel sales page that takes those interested in your product or offer to purchase or book a high intent call, right? This one is not necessary, especially in the beginning, but will definitely help you out quite a bit more if you do. Plus, it'll help, when you're on sales calls, better understand your full offer just on one page, right? This funnel itself is 2 to 3 pages. If it's 2 pages, you're gonna have a 2-step sales page, and then you're simply gonna have a thank you page for purchasing, right? If it's a 3-page, you're gonna have your sales page, and then you're gonna have a checkout page, or it could be a booking page, right? If you're trying to book a high intent call. And then the 3rd page would just be your thank you for booking or thank you for purchasing page. And this should go straight into your offer. These people are already offer aware. They've most likely already hopped on a sales call with you and you haven't closed them yet, or they're in consideration stage. And so it could all be in written format outlining the offer. It can be in video format outlining the offer. It could be both video and copy format or written format to basically look at the offer, and everything should just highlight the offer. You should have this page so that people in consideration after they've hopped on a call, They understand the solution. You want to give them your solution, right? Your offer, right? I wish I could show you these pages, but for the sake of privacy for this client, I'm not allowed to, right? So, but to go from 7 to 8 figures, you don't need a ton of different fancy lead magnets and funnels and things like that. It's good to test them out. What we ended up doing to scale from 7 to 8 to understand which top of funnel and middle of funnel, type of funnels worked. I'm saying funnels a lot, right? But we originally had I think 5 to 7. One year, I think back in 2023, we had 7 different top of funnel lead magnets. And we they were all getting really good lead costs. Not all of them, but a lot of them were. But we were basically looking at the lead to sales cycle and the return on ad spend. So we ran it for, I believe 6 months for all of them at the same time. And then we basically trimmed it down and be like, okay, here's our best lead magnet funnel that brings in the lowest cost per lead, lowest cost per call, and the highest return on investment or return on ad spend. And we ran with that as our one top of funnel lead magnet that led them to our middle of funnel VSL funnel. And we also had completely cold traffic go to our VSL funnel too, but retargeting those leads into that second layer of the middle of the funnel VSL really made a huge difference as far as those campaigns were killer, right? Okay, so the third thing I'm gonna get into is your creatives and audience and copy testing. And it's going to go in that order. Having killer creative is number one. You already solved the issue of you have a good offer, you have a good funnel for the types of funnels that you have, but having killer creative, and we're gonna get into what those creatives kind of look like and what that means, but that will always be number one most importance, right? Number two is your audience testing, in my opinion. Yes, Meta ads and Google ads and other ad platforms are trying to push towards their machine learning to let broad open targeting find the right prospects, right? But after split testing across multiple accounts for over 4 years of these platforms, trying to phase out audiences and interest audiences and lookalikes, things like that, I can tell you now my audience targeting overall has outperformed broad in many cases. There are a few dependencies on how you've trained the pixel and how broad your offer is. But in my opinion, lookalike audiences, single interest audiences, stacked interest audiences have way outperformed broad in many cases, right? From a quality of lead standpoint and even a cost per lead standpoint. But like I said, it depends how you trained your pixel from the beginning. But take advantage of audience targeting while you can, but always split test what suggestions Meta or Google are giving to make a true decision. I never go all in on one thing. Let's say Meta says, hey, you should add $100 more to this ad set and it'll get better results. One, I would never trust that because you'll need third-party tracking for further down the funnel to really gauge that. But also two, split test it. Be like, okay, I'm gonna do my way and I'm gonna do Meta's way and give it a split test for a week or so and see what comes out of it, right? So maybe they are correct. And there have been a lot more circumstances where I have found Meta to be correct in some of their suggestions, but their machine learning is getting better, but it's not quite there yet. I've had also way more instances where my proven methods have way outperformed Meta's suggestions or Google's suggestions. Okay, third, copy testing is very important, but in the scale of importance, it's probably third most important in my opinion. Platforms like YouTube and TikTok have very few ad copy areas to really pull the lever, but places like Google Search and Meta have lots of areas for copy, right? Treat your headline and the above the see more section as the hook, right? The goal is to get them to read the whole ad to best qualify and move them to the next step. So we're selling the click in this sense, right? So always be focusing on creative, your audiences, and your copy testing. All right, the next thing we're gonna get into is testing and scaling these campaigns. How I run my campaigns is 6 core campaigns for every funnel, separated by the type of creative to test and scale. So I'm gonna go through these campaigns, but let's say there's an audience testing campaign, but I'm gonna keep it separate with images. So let's say it's audience testing, only have images within that campaign across all your ad sets. Let's say it's audience testing, but for videos, do the same thing. Let's say it's audience testing, but for carousels, only carousels. Audience testing, but using GIFs or MP4s looking like GIFs, right? So we're gonna have separated campaigns for each funnel for each type of creative it is, if that makes sense. So these are the 6 type of campaigns that I do. So for testing, we're gonna go to audience testing campaign. These use the best creative and the copy, but new audiences. For creative testing, we're gonna use the best audiences and copy, but new creative. Then we got a copy testing campaign. This is using the best creative and audiences, but new copy, right? So these are the 3 core campaigns that I'm testing simultaneously. And then we're gonna have a virality testing campaign. And this is to help support and lift your lead and sales campaigns that we just talked about, like your audience copy and your creative campaign. These are all lead gen, sales, bottom of funnel type of campaigns, right? But this virality testing campaign, you're gonna use the existing post ID, kind of more advanced, but it's gonna help build engagement on the ad to help lower your cost per 1,000 impressions, right? Or your CPMs. So those are the 4 into testing, right? And then we're gonna get into retargeting, right? So your retargeting campaign is the 5th campaign, and you can break this up into middle of funnel retargeting and bottom of funnel retargeting. So middle of funnel retargeting is people like your page engagers, your video viewers, your ad clickers, your website visitors, your page viewers, things like that. And then your bottom of funnel retargeting is gonna be like leads, booked calls, add to carters, initiate checkout. So things like that. Or if you're trying to get repeat buyers, it could also be your purchasers, but selling a different offer, right? Or complementary product. That is your 5th campaign. Okay, the last core campaign that you're gonna wanna run is your scale campaign. And this is, you put this on campaign budget optimization. It's a CBO optimization, and you're gonna use the best of all 3 worlds, right? You're gonna use your audience testing, creative testing, and copy. You're gonna find the best from all of those, and you're gonna put it into your best audiences, best creative, best copy into one CBO campaign, right? And that's one way to scale. The second way to scale within this category is you can mess around with Advantage Plus shopping campaigns as well as Advantage Plus audience campaigns. And this would be at a campaign budget as well. You can do it from an ad set budget too for these Advantage Plus campaigns. But those are the 2 ways that I scale campaigns, right? The last thing I want to get into is the 5 types of creative that you'll want to run. This is the last thing that I've learned that helps this 8-figure brand go from 7 to 8 figures. There's 5 types of ads that you want to focus on to speak as a narrative of ads. Don't just run one style or angle of ad, or people will get really one-sided of you. And this could be in a number of things, right? So I'm gonna kind of go over it. You want to look at the narrative ads and the mix of ads versus just the individual creative. It's good to understand the stats of how your individual creative is performing, but typically if you have a good mix bag of ads and styles and categories of ads, they will all uplift each other, right? Okay, so here is the first type category of ad you can use. Use your best organic social media posts as ads. If something takes off organically on social media, most likely it'll take off putting ad spend behind it. This is the most cost-effective approach, right? So let's say you have an Instagram reel that really takes off and it gets a bunch of engagement. You'll want to take that reel and use the existing proof on it, all the comments and likes and shares, and you'll want to run it as an ad. And the purpose of this is that it'll have a lot of engagement, Facebook and Instagram will like it, and it'll naturally reward you with lower CPMs. And if it performed well from organic standpoint, you have a way higher chance that it'll perform well from a cold perspective, so you're not going in blind. Let me show you on a computer here of kind of the 5 types of creative that we're gonna go through, right? So you just gotta wanna make sure that, this is a more technical thing, but if you're using IG music or copyrighted music from the Instagram platform, you will not be able to run this as an ad. So you wanna make sure that you use stock music or things like that if you wanna use trending sounds or something like that and use it as an ad still. The second type of ad is the social proof story-based ads. So the biggest form of proof is demonstration, right? From those who love you, your product or service, and what you're all about. This is the best way to gain trust from your audience. And this could come in the forms of, let's say you're interviewing your clients and you're talking about, what kind of results they've achieved since working with you and the positive things there. It could come in the ways of testimonials, direct testimonials that are written or video format. It could also come in the fact of you talking to the camera, but you're talking about the case studies that you've gotten for yourself and for your students or clients or whatever offer that you provide, right? Here's an example on the screen of the one that's not a testimonial or interviewing your clients, right? So here's a client of mine who will talk about his students with popsicle sticks on heads. So that's a great example of one. Okay, the third thing we're gonna get into is Super Bowl style ads or branding ads, right? So Super Bowl style ads, these typically get the least amount of conversions directly, but help support the more direct response ad campaigns in the mix. You'll want to focus these ads on getting the prospect to feel whatever your brand stands for, right? And a lot of these can be comical or humorous or have your logo in the background, kind of like this, so that when people see your brand, they'll remember what you're about, right? And this is a lot of TV ads will do this, especially with like insurance ads or, you know, like Duolingo with their bird mascot, things like that. These are very Super Bowl branded style ads. They don't have a lot of education. It's more of like, hey, this is what we're all about. And if you want to learn more, we have some resources for you, or check it out, right? Very soft call to action. But these do help support the other ads, even though directly they typically have the lowest conversions, but they typically have a ton of engagement because they can appeal to a wider audience. Let me show you one real quick.
Yo, what's up, my G? What's up? If you ever wondered how investment funds work, the world of Wall Street, it's kind of a crazy world, if you be honest. In the world of starting, scaling hedge funds, venture capital, real estate funds, you got to be playing chess, not checkers. You know what I mean? Checkmate. So when you're starting a real estate fund, you got to pool capital together. You got to keep your energy really, really high. Shut up. So we've helped over 20,000 people get started in the fund world. How to start one, how to scale one, how to raise capital, how to pull it together, and ultimately learn how to hit the putt. So click on the link below. We've helped over 1,000 people get started in the fund world. Click on the link below and we'll help you get started in the fund world. See you inside. Is that pretty good? Is that pretty good? You like it? Zing?
Hey! So great. That was a great fun ad, you know, for talking about finance and investments, things like that. It's a very branded ad, right? So that one, when we ran it with the other direct response ads, it helped support them and actually performed better after that. But running it individually, that was the only ad we're running, it did okay. It didn't do the greatest, right? Okay, next we're gonna get into ad creative number 4, which is origin story type of ads, right? It's okay if these are longer ads, even 5 to 10 minute ads. It will help your audience know, like, and trust you for your successes, essentially. Everyone likes an underdog and can relate to it, right? So this is you telling your story on why you're selling the things that you're selling, right? And this could be going from, hey, I started on Fiverr and now, you know, I have a $10 million agency, or, you know, things like that. Here's my story. I know how you feel, right? A lot more on the emotional side. And the last type of ad we're gonna get into is educational value ads, right? You wanna give massive value in the ad itself, teaching and educating them to be curious to learn more of what you have to say. And this could come in ways of, like, let's say you have a BSL funnel, right? Let's say there's a training portion. You can take snippets of your training portion and put them in the ad itself just to spark the curiosity, and then have the call to action. Hey, this is just one of the 3 things I'm going to show you in this free training. If you want to learn more, click on this ad type deal. It could also be like whiteboard type ads, or on vibe boards or chalkboards, or on your iPad, you know, sketching things out, visualizing. These are very logic based ads of, you know, the educational side. But yeah, these are educational, right? So I can show numbers, I can show graphs, I can show on my iPad any type of visual or chart to help them understand what you're gonna teach them or what you're gonna offer them, right? Anyways, these are the 5 core things I've learned from scaling an education/coaching company from 1.2 mil to over $36 million while maintaining over an 8x return on ad spend across all social channels. I hope you take these to heart and that it helps. I make these videos for free, basically to help you scale your business. If you're stuck within the 7-figure a year mark and you wanna get to 8 figures, follow these steps, right? And feel free to always book a call with me just down below. So hope that helps. Thanks.